So, welcome everyone to Eng Together. And for those who aren't familiar, this is a meeting where the whole engineering team gets together and talks about sort of whatever's on our minds, including announcements, including sometimes quick, sometimes a little bit longer tech talks from folks on each of the engineering teams. And we go through the KPIs, and if there's time at the end, we go through a bit of a social section. And to start it off, we'll go to announcements, which Luke usually handles.
Yeah. So first things first, welcome again, Dante. Great to have you joining the team. Dante is joining as a software engineer on the MDM team, and we have some big plans for MDM over the next couple of quarters. So very excited to have Dante's support there.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Next up, we have a new section in the handbook that I'd like to go over with everybody called High Priority User Stories and Bugs. So as we all know, sometimes we have higher priority issues, sometimes that need immediate attention in the case of an outage or a security vulnerability. Sometimes it's a critical bug, it's a broken workflow, and sometimes it's just something very urgent that we'd like to address as soon as possible. But the problem was we didn't really have a clear way of labeling and understanding the priority of an issue, right? And what this created was some confusion around the entire business, but especially business stakeholders on how they could indicate the priority of an issue and then have confidence and an understanding of how it would be triaged. So if you open up the agenda doc, I have a link. I will also post it here.
I just shared it.
Cool, thank you. And what this does is create a process that everyone will follow. Everyone in the business, no one is able to bypass the process. And I think that's an important aspect of it. So high priority issues, all issues are treated as standard priority by default. Some issues are assigned a priority label to indicate urgency for the business. So the most urgent thing is a P0. And examples of that would be a customer outage, a confirmed security vulnerability, or even a new feature if it's needed to address an immediate business emergency. And the response to that is we immediately stop other work and swarm the issue. We work we work 24/7 in shifts until resolved. Obviously, we don't expect anyone to stay on for 24 hours, but the spirit of that is that we'll do our best to stay online until it's resolved. I think maybe one time we've actually had this happen in the last, say, 3 years at Fleet, where it was truly a P0 type of event. And the impact for this, we want to make very clear across the business, which is a significant impact. It may actually void the entire current sprint. And so we want to make sure that this is like the breaking the glass and pulling the emergency lever. You should only be used in true emergencies and things that are, existential risks for the business or for our customers. Next up, we have critical, which is P1. So examples for this would be a supported workflow is broken, which would be a critical bug, a potential security vulnerability, or a new feature required to address an immediate critical business need. The response to this is the issue is brought to the next stand-up for estimation and immediately brought into the sprint. Necessary team members are assigned as their top priority. This has a high impact, but it does not necessarily void the sprint, but it will definitely reduce the overall velocity as it requires deprioritizing other work. So the important thing with this, differentiating between a P0 and a P1, is that a P1 would come in the next day in a more orderly fashion. It's not something where there's a fire, everyone needs to drop their work and jump on it. And then lastly, we have P2, which would be urgent. Examples would be a supported workflow is not functioning as intended. It may actually work, but not the way it should. A newly drafted feature has an associated urgent business need. The issue is prioritized at the top of the next release. If the opportunity cost of waiting for the next sprint is too high, it may be considered for the current sprint. And this has a low to medium impact. If it's prioritized into the current sprint, it may reduce overall velocity and require deprioritizing other work. So the process for doing this, and I see the links are broken, so I need to go in here and fix this, is to just anyone in the business can create an issue and assign this P label and then assign to me. So I am the release DRI. which means I will be responsible for immediately triaging these, reprioritizing if I disagree with the prioritization, and then putting it into the process appropriately. Any questions, thoughts, concerns on this? Cool. And like everything, everything's always a draft at Fleet. And so if you have ideas or thoughts on how this can be improved, looks like George has a question.
Yeah, real quick. Does this modify, change, or eliminate the need for light speed?
Good question. It might.
Because I feel like light speed is now just P2s.
Right. You're actually right. A P2 would be something that we do want to prioritize over. So that's a good point. I'll make a note of that and talk to Noah about how we can work that into the process. It would make sense just to rely on this versus having these kind of one-off labels. And to be clear, we've had this kind of P0, P1, P2 rating for infrastructure, which is kind of traditionally where it's used. We'll keep using that and the SLA requirements we have around P-rated issues for infrastructure and managed customer environments. But what this is kind of internal SLAs that we're giving to the rest of the business around what our response will be given priorities. And the business is agreeing that this is this is what defines that priority. So unless it qualifies as a P0, it can't be labeled as a P0. Haziel.
Yeah, is there like an emergency czar or someone like who's this like the point person in the case of a P0? Like
Yeah.
there's enough folks I think to where like there might be like a too many cooks in the kitchen problem if we all try to do the same thing at the same time. So I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I will be the first point of contact for all P-rated issues. From there, I'll adjust the priority label if needed. And then once I triage it and put it in, I'll assign it to the PM and the EM. And it will be the EM's responsibility to kind of rally the necessary team members and try to make it as low of a disruption as possible. But it's also understandable if there's a P0 emergency that everyone's going to kind of be like, what's going on over there? And come take a look, which is natural, and see if they can help out, which is a great sign for the team. Which is why we want to be careful about calling anything a P0 because it creates a distraction for all the entire product group.
Cool, thank you.
So I'm going to have probably an automation in place so that anything that gets that label, I'll just automatically get assigned. And then I even have messages in here, like if it's a P0 or a P1 and you need my immediate response, I'm like DM me on Slack. If I don't respond there, text me on my phone. My phone number is in my Slack profile. I'll never mind someone texting me for a P-rated issue. And we'll figure out a way to triage that. I'm sure George and Sharon will help with that responsibility so that I can go on hikes and not have coverage sometimes. Cool. Any other questions? Great. And the purpose here is just to create more organization and less kind of fire alarms being pulled by having a kind of more clearly defined process for this. All right, cool. That is it for that. I did want to give an update. I know everyone has been working on this over the last several sprints, the old repos. So we had a fair amount of public forks and other repos that had built up in our org. We wanted to move all of those out that weren't critical right now. There's really only 3 repos that we have to have. And so we've been working on removing all those. I just transferred out mock implementation, kubequery, NVD tools, and OS query in a box. Those have been transferred out of the org. And then with 4.47, MDM is removing the last of those dependencies. So as soon as that goes out, we'll go through and clear out the rest of those so that we just have the 3 public repos, which I believe are Fleet, NVD, and Fleet GitOps will be the 3. We can add more later. We just want to make sure they're in the handbook and documented if we do, so that we don't get the same kind of buildup of old forks we don't need anymore. The purpose for this is to make it easy for people to collaborate with us, to be able to come to the GitHub homepage and see which repos are active and maintained and that we're working on, and not have old forks that kind of create clutter and confusion. And then lastly, before we can get to the fun stuff, the tech talks, I'm going to go over engineering case. All right, just to kind of paint a picture of where all that effort has been going. As you can see here, back in July, leading up until October, we had this steady climb of bug open time. And that was due, we knew it was happening. It was happening because we were prioritizing feature work over bugs for a while. And we paid the price for that by getting up to over 50 days, or just at 50 open time. And then we put a lot of effort, especially starting around the end of the year, as when we made the decision to start prioritizing bugs over features. As you can see, that's having a really, really good impact. And the overall trend is moving in a really good direction. So thank you all for your work, and it's definitely paying off in the overall quality of the product, and us having to spend less time on bugs and more time on features and other fun stuff like we'll get into next. So that's it for announcements. Anyone else have anything? All right, cool. I'll hand over to Zach to introduce the Tech Talks.
Thank you, Luke. And thanks to the folks who volunteered for Tech Talks today. Let's start with Endpoint Ops team. Victor, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Zach. So just an introduction. We've been using emojis in our dog food team names. As I was developing the GitOps flow, I discovered some issues around emojis, and then I think various other people have also ran into some issues with Unicode. So we wanted to get emojis back into our team names in dog food. So I recently coded up a change, and we have emojis fully supported, and I just wanted to cover a couple gotchas. Since we don't fully support Unicode for everything, we think we just support it for team names and policy names. Our original was going to support it for query names, but query names go to OS query, and it seemed like a bigger effort. So I just wanted to hold off on that for now. Okay, so let's talk about Unicode. Let me share my screen. Okay, so Unicode can display basically any kind of characters. It can be from 1 byte up to a lot of bytes. So for example, you have this emoji, 4 bytes. Generally, emoji is 4 bytes, but you can have basically the same emoji with skin tone, and it has an extra 4 bytes for the skin tone. So it's basically the same emoji as before, and then it's modified. So a single character in Unicode can be a lot of bytes. So the first issue I want to cover is Unicode equivalence. So you've got this Unicode character E with the accent. It can actually be displayed multiple ways. It can be displayed as a single character, or it can be displayed as 2 characters. The E followed by an accent. And I'm misspeaking here. This is called a code point. So this whole thing is called a character, and when you decompose these are code points. So another example, so when people type this or search for this, we need to be able to basically recognize that either this is an accent or both of these two effectively mean the same thing. A simpler example of this is the Greek omega letter. Omega, Unicode also has the ohm sign, which looks exactly like an omega. So actually the ohm sign and the omega are equivalent. So it's basically the same 2 code points that are equivalent. So how does this work with our database? So I'm going to create a table, and I'm going to run, did something. And I'm going to insert these two characters here. So this is a Korean character, and these two symbols are equivalent to that. Let's see. So you see two things are inserted. They look the same, but when I search for one of them, when I search for this character, only one of them comes up, right? So that's kind of the issue we have with equivalence. And the root cause, one reason we have this issue is because of the collation we use. We use this older collation that doesn't support this equivalence. From what I understand, and we have to use this because we're supporting MySQL 5.7. MySQL 8.0 has this new collation. And 900 stands for Unicode version 9.0. Of course, this is already outdated because Unicode now, Go, for example, is using Unicode 15. And I think 16 is already out. So this is like Unicode to a certain degree is a moving target. But that said, I just do want to point out that this normalization stuff is backward compatible. So, you know, I guess I haven't touched the normalization. That's for future. Okay. Back to this. AI means accent insensitive, CI case insensitive. So we are using a case insensitive collation, but Unicode equivalence doesn't work. So the second issue is just emojis don't really work. Let me drop this table. So I'm going to create a table and insert some emojis into it. And then if I want to run this select, see, I'm running a select on this fire emoji, but it gives me back two emojis. So this collation doesn't work at all for emojis. If I run this like, so in this case, I get something that looks correct. So it looks like when you do a like, it's actually using a binary comparison, while if you're using an equals, it uses the collation. So the behavior of equals and like are actually different. So it feels like is usually what we want. Interesting, if I run this one, it returns me both the base and the skin tone versions. Seems like that's something that we'd want. Here's one workaround for this is when you're using an equal sign, you actually specify a different collation for the comparison. So if I run this, instead of two emojis before, it's returning me a single emoji. So the Unicode equivalence and emoji issues are the two I wanted to cover. Actually the third one is just an FYI. We always want our search to be case insensitive. So if we're making changes to support Unicode, when we hit our API endpoints and we're ordering them, we want the results to be coming back with a case insensitive search, case insensitive order. So that's just something to keep in mind. So how to deal with, so this is how to deal with the emoji comparison. So how to deal with the Unicode equivalence. So to deal with Unicode equivalence, we use this thing called normalization. This is an example. So the key I want to highlight is this. So Go has a Unicode library that has this normalization, and this NFC stands for I forgot what NF stands for, but C stands for composed form. So this is the most common way to normalize text. So in this line up here, I create 2 strings, and this is the way you can do it by, explicitly using this unquote. You can put the actual Unicode codes in your code. So I create these two things, I print them, then I normalize them and I compare them again. So if I run this, when I print them here, they look the same, but in their raw form, they're not equal. But after I normalize them, they are equal, because both of these normalize to this guy up here. So basically, to support Unicode equivalence, we would need to normalize the strings before inserting, updating, or searching in the database. All right, any questions? That's kind of all I wanted to cover for Unicode and emojis.
One thing maybe to add, this is a question that I didn't know and you answered, Victor. Will the normalizer ever change? We are counting on a Go code normalizer. Will there be different rules in the future which may break something?
Yeah.
We store something normalized and then we look for it and the normalization changed, then it'll break. So
Right.
I was happy to hear that.
That's a good question, Sharon. So Unicode has this backwards compatibility standard, so that whichever version you're using, as long as it's like version 4 point something and above, the same string will return the same normalized result. Now that said, in future Unicode versions, they could introduce new characters. So those new characters may have a different normalization. Okay. And Brock is pointing out there's different normalization forms. Yes. And NFC is the composed form, and that's the most common normalization that's being used.
I think the important thing is that what we use will never change. The NFC will never change. That's simple. So stick with something.
Right. Okay, back to you, Zach.
Thank you, Victor. And great points to Brock for pointing out that MySQL 5.7 is end of life. I'm now in the process of filing an issue for us to remove that support. And I did just check in our Terraform uses MySQL 8. And I think we will definitely want to work on making sure we get all of our customers and users onto MySQL 8, and then we can use the better features that Victor's talking about.
And the MySQL releases, I mean, this has been years in the making, right? 8 was coming out when I was still at Jamf, so the MySQL release life cycle is very long.
Oh yeah, and we've supported MySQL 8 for years now at Fleet, and so that is hopefully the default that everyone's on, but it is, I do believe that we still document support for MySQL 5.7. And so an immediate step is we should no longer document that support, work with our customers to get them on the right version, and then actually start using the MySQL 8 features that we weren't able to use before. Yeah, I'll link this issue that I'm filing, and then if folks can jump in and include information about what we are missing by not supporting minimum 8, that will be helpful. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Victor and Brock. And thanks for sharing all the Unicode stuff, Victor. I know that MySQL has been very, very inconsistent and painful with Unicode over the years that I've been doing Fleet. And I hope that things get better as we move towards the future. All right, so next up, we've got MDM team, George.
All righty, let me go ahead and share my entire screen. And we'll take a look at, I didn't even pull up the contributing docs for how to release Fleet today, but there were so many manual steps. And I can't do anything manual more than twice because it just bugs my brain. So I went about, go ahead and made some automation for when we want to do a patch release. So here we go. I've got 2 issues that I've already tagged with the milestone 4.46.2 because Sharon's working on 4.46.1. So you can see that I've tagged these 2 issues. One's a bug, one's a subtask of the monorepo work that we have. But just from there, that's where we've got the patch release script that I'm going to share the PR into the chat if anybody wants to take a look and follow along, but we'll be driving mostly from the terminal here. So we've got dry run, force, help, minor, open API keys, start version, target date, and target version. If I just run this patch release DF for dry run and force, it will start going and say, I found that the current release is 4.46.0. The next bump to a patch would be 4.46.1. It looks for the milestone 4.46.1, finds that it's number 71, and says, I would have moved to these branches, starting off of the tag fleet 4.46.0, creating a branch, patch fleet 4.46.1. And then it goes, uh-oh, 4.46.1 has no target issues because the milestone currently does not have any issues assigned to that milestone. So it goes ahead and abandons it. But I can say I want to do target version 4.46.2. And this would then create a branch from 4.46.0 going to 4.46.2. It would then say, I found these 2 issues that we looked at on the ZenHub board. It would point out the pull requests that are tied to each of these issues. And then it would say, these are the commits that it needs to cherry pick in. And then it would create the changelog, add a PR in main for just the changelog updates, then send, before it does the changelog updates, it takes all the changes files from make changelog and sends it to ChatGPT to format it and takes the response from that formatting and creates the changelog PR. Then it goes ahead and creates the normal PR and then creates the QA ticket automatically and assigns Bree and Reed. Then we go and have what I need to show. So I'm actually going to run this without dry run and without force now. We're going to step through what it would normally say. This is a patch release from 4.46.0 to 46.2. Is this correct? Yes, found milestone. So now we're, in the thick of it where it's created the patch branch off of the tag release. It now has found the issues and says, these are the pull requests that I found. Check any issues that have no pull requests. No to cancel and yes to continue. So normally if you have a bunch of tickets, like the first time I ran this, I think I had like 18 tickets and about 4 of them had no issues tied to them. And 2 of those correctly did not need pull requests. They were more like process features that we were closing out. But if you ever find a ticket that doesn't have a pull request, you need to go make sure that somebody just didn't forget to actually tie the pull request back to the issue, because that's how this script goes and finds that information. But it looks like we're good. We're going to go ahead and continue. So this is actually doing the cherry picks. Oh my God, it's got a merge conflict. Oh, this is the worst for my demo. Because literally I have it fail out and say, my cherry pick failed. Good luck, have fun. So let's see here. The best part about this script is it's idempotent. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove nope, milestone 4.46. I'm betting it's what Martin had to suffer through for the NanoDep repo. And then I'm just going to rerun this. And it has reset me back onto main. It's tossed away all of the stuff. Oh no, can it delete branch? Right. If you say so. What do you mean you cannot delete branch? Oh, right. There we go. What? Oh, it's because I'm in the merge conflict. All right, everybody gets to watch me suffer. It's going to be great. Give me the abort. I need the abort. There we go. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program.
Roberto said the presentation is so good that I think all of this is intentional, to be honest.
I'll be honest.
Which I kind of thought too for a while. I was like, oh, this is all part
But
of
like,
it.
yeah, this is amazing. This is the most amazing demo ever. We're seeing every feature of the script.
All right. Patrick, I mean, this is basically how I do automation is when something breaks, I go implement in the automation how to fix it. This is the one where I'm like, this is going to be complicated. All right, so we're back on main, and I want to run my patch release to 4.46.2 again. Is this correct? Yes. Found milestone with a simple issue. Go ahead and cherry pick it. We're good. It creates the change log. We've sent it off to ChatGPT for formatting. We've actually created the PRs, I believe. So here we go. We've created pull request 17250 for update changelog into main. Let's go ahead and just pull that open. Now, of course, I'm going to have to just demolish all of this, right? But here's my 4.46.2 changelog update. Fix UI styling with loading state for automatic enrollment settings page. Now, it's actually waiting for a couple of GitHub actions to be created. Here is the QA ticket that we're going to have to, we'll probably just reuse this. I'll leave it open because we're intending on doing this for real on Friday in 2 days. But this is the QA ticket to run the release smoke tests. And then we've got select a workflow. I believe we want this one. This one. Here we go. We are now watching the Go releaser finish building the release binaries and creating the draft release. This was something where I was hashtag too fast. My automation created the draft release, and then we learned this workflow will fail when there's already a release with this release created. So I went too fast, faster than this action has ever been run. So now, unfortunately, this is going to take like 10 minutes. So at this point, we're going to have to use our imagination, and then it spits out. So the reason we have to wait for this is because part of the draft release is those checksum binary, the checksum SHAs. So this waits for this to finish, then it downloads those checksum SHAs, puts it into the release notes for me because that's another manual step I had to do, and that's baloney. And then the only thing left is right now it caps out what I need to go paste into the draft release. And so that's currently a manual step, but the next update to this automation will be that it just updates the draft release content description with the contents of the file. And then once QA has done their smoke test, they've cleared this patch for release, you go ahead and hit release and do the updates in Slack. So the other thing, I think we can Control-C out of this, is this was, oh no, was it updating too much? All right, wait for it. This gives me a list of things to drop as an announcement in help engineering to help our QA engineers find both the issue that it just automatically created, the Docker deploy status, that it's deploying to Docker Hub so that they can use this release so far, and then the list of tickets created in the release. So if I go ahead and copy this, and then I'm going to put demo purposes only, but paste this into help engineering. You know, this is the idea where I would paste this. People can go check, like, the milestone 67 currently has the one open ticket, right? So I would want each engineer to go and look at the milestone and say, like, yeah, those are the bugs that I think should be in this release. We didn't miss anything. I would hope people would come in and say, you know, we absolutely need to pull in this extra bug. And the whole point of this whole script to be item potent is I can now just add in another bug that we want to add to this release and rerun the script. And then all the confirmations, once we're, you know, confident in the things that we have, that's when you do force option, where it no longer prompts you, are you sure these are the issues you want, yada, yada, yada. And hopefully one day we get this to a GitHub action where you just fire off the GitHub action. And even better yet, we need the Slack bot integration. So you don't ever have to paste anything in Slack. It'll just put it all there for you. I believe that concludes my tech talk. Any questions, comments, concerns? And I've got a lot of chat to catch up on, it looks like.
Yeah. It's always so distracting for me if I'm trying to present and Slack's going off, but I couldn't help myself. Because that was awesome. And I mean, this recently became a lot more painful for us to do manually, which is why this is such a big win from an operational perspective. Because we used to just release patches for critical bugs, and recently we decided to start releasing a patch every week between minor releases. So we had bug fixes in, why not release them to the community? But that meant that we had to cherry pick a lot more than just one or two commits, and we had to cherry pick them in order, or else there was potential for conflicts if, for example, a fix was built on something that wasn't being cherry picked.
Yeah, this was one of the things that through the automation, I did one round of cherry picking where I just did them in a random order, and I had like 7 conflicts I had to go through, and I went,
yeah, you wouldn't think.
And Luke said you should do them in order. So now the script takes all the commits it needs to get, orders them by time, and then does the cherry picks in that order.
Right, which is huge because we were having to briefly do that manually, go through, look at every commit that we wanted, look at what it went into main, figure out what order it went in so that we could cherry pick in the same order. So that was kind of like the starting point.
Computers are great at that thing.
Right. Which was kind of the starting point of like, we should automate that step, which was the initial ask. And then George was like, why not automate all the steps? So really went way above and beyond the initial ask on this. And thank you, George. Even at formatting with ChatGPT is some next level.
If this is a point script where I have to, in the middle of it, go open ChatGPT, it's a useless script.
Right.
That's my opinion. If I have to stop and do a manual step during the process of the script, it's no longer a good script.
My friend Bill at Jamf always said about that. He said, never make yourself a cog in your own machine, right? If you have to press the button somewhere, you're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for making that. And everyone who is responsible for releases, thanks you. And it really brings down the operational overhead. I know there is operational overhead still with us releasing the patch every week, but that is part of why our bug open time is going down, because we don't have to wait for every 3 weeks to close bugs. We don't close them till they're released. Now that we're issuing a patch every week, that means every week we close out bugs, which is really helping us stay on top of those more quickly. So really appreciate that. Roberto,
nice.
Roberto, will I put you on the spot too much if I ask you to talk about your merge freeze replacement workflow?
No, I had to search for that issue and it's not ready yet. I didn't have time to finish it up, but
yeah, maybe just show the PR to show what you're thinking, not like actually demo how it works. But
Yeah,
Roberto proactively was just like, same thing. It sucks to have to go to another interface like merge freeze every time I want to unfreeze something. It sucks that people who are not putting in code changes have to go unfreeze. Like if it's a doc change, it's not held to the freeze. So all throughout the business, we have people that are going and having to do this all the time, every freeze. It costs a lot of money in total. A lot of time, right? Time is money. And Roberto saw that and proactively presented and built a workflow to automate that with GitHub labels so that we can just use labels to freeze and unfreeze. And then to also have rules so that we only apply that label automatically to PRs that change code that we want to freeze, which is going to save hours, I think, a freeze period across the business. So just wanted to, give props where props are due and get some more eyes on it.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for doing that, Roberto.
No problem.
Does that
Yeah.
use GitHub Actions? Yes,
Yeah,
I see.
exactly. Yeah, it is GitHub Actions. And for the demo, I'm using the timebox label, but I think we want to do a dedicated label for unfreezing. But it's just a CI check. Right now, all the checks are passed. So there is a special merge freeze check here. But if the freeze is on and the PR doesn't have the label, the special label, where we defined that to be, it's going to trigger another run of the merge freeze, and it's going to fail because it doesn't have the label. And the same this is an example that only contains documentation changes. So we are able to detect that and just automatically unfreeze, even if it doesn't have the tag. Yeah, the challenge we have right now to finish this is once the freeze is done, we need a way to trigger all the actions again. So the PRs are not blocked anymore. And we know how, we just didn't have the time to finish that up yet. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Roberto. Just wanted to highlight that. And I know it's a pain point for everyone going to merge freeze UI and having to deal with that. So we're hoping to get this merged in the next couple of release cycles and be able to switch to that. And it reminds me, just like as we talk about building a top performing company and being a top performing team, it's easy to think about, well, we just need to work really hard, right, and be really good. But also part of it is seeing what areas like this where you can improve efficiency across the organization and kind of your impact across the organization. And so things like George and Roberto and Victor, who I believe actually pointed out and then fixed the Unicode issue. Those are all issues of really like taking it to the next level to not just improve your own efficiency, but improve the entire organization's efficiency. And I think that's a great way that we can all kind of, rising waters raises all boats type of thing. And it's great to see that. So I just wanted to highlight that being a top performing team isn't always just being really, really good and working hard. It's also having this kind of vision and following through on it.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for highlighting that, Luke. And back to the patch release stuff, I wanted to double check, now that we're doing them more often, are we doing this step? Because I think that we have potential to find tricky to detect bugs if we're not carefully validating these migrations. And this also might be a candidate for a place where we could invest some time in making the migration system work better so it's easier for us to not end up with out of order migrations.
I think so far all patches did not have any migration stuff. But definitely this is one of the things George and I are looking at when creating patches.
So I think
awesome.
For the last patch on 4.45.1, that's actually why I pulled in Victor's PR, which added a migration in front of a bug that we wanted to pull in for the patch release anyway. So yeah, it's currently still a manual process to review the migrations and make sure that they're not out of order, but it's still manual. That's something I'm still currently rechecking. But yeah, also I think that can easily be automated.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last
important point to check that, because that can cause some big problems if we get migrations out of order.
Yeah, I just needed everyone to appreciate the ASCII art just for a solid 10 seconds.
Is that a fighter jet?
That is.
Making a hard right turn?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for the tech talks and demos. That is super cool, and great to see some awesome work. And thank you again, Luke, for highlighting people kind of noticing ways that we can improve our workflows and improve our engineering practices. Love to see that for sure.